Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet again Workflow Wednesday with none other than yours truly, world-renowned Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. This week, I'm happy to kick off discovering and seeing how we can utilize the new November updates, different changes inside of Fusion to streamline and make a simpler and better workflow. So I'm going to give this a few minutes, make sure you guys can hear me. As always, we're going to dive right in and I'm going to walk you guys through a few things. We're going to make sure on my screen I got everything set up because I am going to have to pop out the new what's new. And I could definitely show you guys how to do that on your end. So let's dive into this. Well, off the rip, Bogdan, great to see you. Everything's good. You guys can see me. So I'm going to get into sharing my screen. Now, why I do that, I want to let you guys know if you have questions at any time, feel free to throw them in chat. I will do my best to actually go out and answer those. But I also want to point out to a lot of you is I've yet to really dig too deep into this, much more than watching the videos. Now, for those of you that don't know, if you're one of those ones that get a notification about what's new and you just close it out and you don't pay attention to it after an update, I would highly recommend you start doing so because there's going to be improvements that you're going to catch throughout the next month that you're going to wish you knew about sooner. So how you can navigate to that off the start is we're going to go ahead and click the little question mark. We're going to go down to the what's new section. And as you guys are going to see, this is going to pop out the article of basically everything that is new inside of Fusion. Now, if I scroll down, if you're like myself and you really only care about the manufacturer workspace, we could simply click on manufacturer and basically start our pecking list. As you guys can see, the first couple of things we have is machine over holes and pockets. Again, this is going to be a luxury feature, and I'll show you guys why. Next, hole template editor. And then diving a little bit further down, we start to get into trim enhancements. And then we're going to see how we can actually utilize selection sets from avoid machine surfaces. Again, this will streamline your workflow quite a lot. And then from there, we're going to actually skip over the PMI data and dive a little deeper into enhanced import. Actually, we're not going to do the enhanced import, but multi-axis drilling is one that I think you guys are going to love. So let's go back to my Fusion 360. There I am again with the 360, even though they've changed the name of it. Back into my Autodesk Fusion. As you guys can see, the legendary headlight mold is back again, as you're used to in the past. Is I've already got my setup set up. Now, I do have in here, you guys ever knew is at one point we suppressed features because of holes and toolpaths, right? In this case, I'm actually using my modified part as my stock just to make life easy, but we're going to kick this off, right? So we're going to do our steep and shallow as we've done in the past. We're going to go ahead and define our tool. Now, what I'm looking for is my lovely 1/2-inch ball. And then to make this very easy, I'm just going to do a selection around the top of my part. Now, by default, what we're going to see is we are going to actually plunge into each and every one of these holes as soon as we get a toolpath, of course. Looks like she's taken a little bit more time than we've expected, which is pretty standard in my book. We somehow end up with some type of dilemma. But what we're looking for is, if you notice, we get towards these holes and we start to dive down in them, right? Smaller end mill obviously would go deeper in that hole, but this is the whole concept behind the ability to avoid stuff like this, right? In the past, we've had to patch over holes, fix this up in a lot of different ways, remove the hole feature altogether. But as I've seen, if we actually go in to our toolpath, we're going to go ahead and open up model. Now, in this case, I am going to show you guys that from what I saw, we need to actually flip-flop here. We need to say no on the entire part. Add a secondary feature, which is going to be the ability to only machine said surface. And then we're going to get now that machine over holes option. So again, I'm going to go ahead and check that. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. Again, what I've done there is I've inverted to say don't do the model, only do said surface. And we're going to hit OK here. So we'll give this a moment to calculate. And I think just like that, it's automatically worked, right? We're no longer diving down inside of those holes. Now, again, based on the toolpath you choose, the option does move around a little bit. I'm going to use geodesic because why not pick on something new? Geodesic is driven by a surface. And as you guys can see here, we have the machine over holes option once again. So if I left geodesic alone to calculate out, we'll give it a moment here. And then we'll see, again, we're diving into the holes. And we could get a little more fancy with this, but again, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of this. I think this is what's also holding up my calculation time a hair. So again, you guys are going to see what's going to happen. We're going to give it a few more moments here. In the meantime, I'm actually going to pivot real quick. As you can see, we're actually avoiding the holes altogether. And as you're seeing, geodesic is one of those toolpaths that I love, but I also have a hate relationship with, because as you're seeing, it's doing a scallop. However, it's basing everything off of a machining boundary. We could, of course, go circle at center. I am going to use my famous trick of upping my tolerance to get faster calculation. And let's go ahead and give it a little bit more of a step over so we can see more features. So as you're seeing, again, we're getting that calculation, but I'm going to shift gears here real quick, and I'm going to jump down to the idea of multi-axis drilling. Now, it is referring to multi-axis drilling. However, it is positional drilling, right? So with that being said, you have your 4-axis ability, if you guys aren't familiar with the rotary setup and ability, and then we can go full 5-axis. So as you guys can see, based on setup Z, we have a maximum and a minimum tilt. So in this case, I want to get everything all the way down to 90 degrees. From there, as you guys are familiar with, we're going to go ahead and pick our hole, select our same size hole, and just like that, we've grabbed all of these holes automatically. And with that, we'll hit OK. And it's actually going to drill these with my end mill, but I think what you guys are seeing is the high luxury features of being able to quickly grab and deploy a drilling strategy in full multi-axis mode. Now we're going to simulate this here in a minute on a machine, because this gets better and better when we start to talk about our clearances. But let's go back to what we were talking about, right? Remember, geodesic, right now we're currently machining over the holes. We're using them as lead in, lead outs, because we only want to machine the surface. If I go back to that geodesic toolpath and I check that machine over holes, we're going to hit OK, and you're going to see the calculation start to happen. Now we're going right over top of our holes. Again, if your toolpath is driven by surfaces, you're going to notice that I have that ability to just check that box where I define my surfaces versus utilizing my avoid touch machining settings. Now that does lead me into pointing out here is there is now the ability to take your groups and quickly create a selection set. I'm doing this right now by clicking with my right mouse clicker. Upon saying create selection set, if I go over to the left side of my screen, you now see I have multiple selection sets in place. Again, we could create a selection set for both setups, for both items, and we have that now as a quick speed feature to carry geometry from one toolpath over to the other. So again, it looks like on my side, of course, nonetheless, that I always have some type of little bug here. So let's go ahead and delete these real quick and try once again. Go into that toolpath, go to my geometry, right click, create selection set, which I'm not seeing it actually populate the selection set. So I think I might be doing something wrong on my side. Wouldn't be the first time, wouldn't be the last time. Let's try putting a name in here real quick. Again, we're going to go ahead and right click, create selection set. There we go. Just like that, it populated up at the top. So it does work. Yours truly is the problem, not the solution in this case. So again, we created our first selection set. I'm going to edit the one that says model. I think this is where they're saying in that article, if you read through it, that you can't actually do it with the original model. So again, if I create a selection set, I am, again, completely puzzled by the fact that I lied to you guys. It looks like we can. So if we get into this further and further, and we start talking about different tool paths, as you guys know we could do, let's say we want to do a flat tool path. I am going to need a little different tool path here. So we're going to go in. As you can see, we have, again, our model versus not. I could hit add additional surfaces, where these are going to actually be the touch surfaces. And I can go over and pick them on the left side of my screen. Again, in this case, you guys know I've cheated the system where we just go avoid here. But if I added another grouping for avoid, I could go over to model on the left, pick them all in one clean motion. And just like that, I'm rinsing and repeating and reusing these surface selections as I go. So again, some very neat things as you guys are seeing. I do need to get our actual machine pulled in here. I want to put this on a 5-axis. Now, I think we can get away with this on the gantry mill, we might have to switch over to like a UMC, something that's a table 5-axis. The idea is at the end of the day is I've seen some neat things about when we go in and simulate our multi-axis drilling. Let's go ahead and simulate with our machine here. And we should be able to see the now ability to jump around with a different type of clearance versus, as you guys may or may not know, the full retract capabilities. So we'll give this a second here. Our machine is all pulled up. As you guys can see, we are getting warnings, which was to be expected. Now, I am going to double check everything here. Let's make sure we get our base turned on, that we could see the full machine. And now it'll be a little tricky, but as you're seeing, there's our drilling cycles. Yours truly needs to go ahead and set his machine base on. But there is all of our drilling as we work through this part. Getting a couple of hangups here. Who knows? If you guys have ever seen my free support Friday, I've butchered these machines quite well. There could be a reason for that. We might just need to slow her down a little bit and hit the play button and let it do its natural thing. But what I'm looking for is, as you guys can see, is we're not actually going all the way back to a home position, reorientating and coming back in. Dropping your cycle time quite a bit, making your life much better, speeding up, making things easier on the operator. Now, if I go into drilling, I believe we're going to see that here based on our heights tab. As you guys can see, we have a plane kind of setup once again, all built into the software, making your lives much easier. So let's go ahead and shift gears. I am actually going to pivot over to another part real quick, and we're going to see once again just the simplicity of going in, creating our setup. Again, if I want to do my multi-axis drilling, as you guys are going to see here, I'm going to need to give this a tool. Tool itself isn't the biggest deal. We can always come back to it. So I need to go ahead and go to the headlight and just grab any drill that I have here. That is a tiny little 40. Let's go 6mm. Again, 5-axis selection. In this case, let's say I want to only go to 45. So again, I could plug in a 45 here, jumping over to my geometry tab, picking one of my holes. And just like that, you're going to see that we did not get our multi-axis machining. But let's go back in there one more time. Let's take it just a little bit further. Let's go ahead and put it back to 90 and see if we can get it to pick up on all those. Now, I already realized what I did. Guys, I failed to check same size diameter. So again, select same size diameter as wise. And now, again, let's go back to 45 just to see if we can make this happen. As you guys are seeing, based on 45 degrees, we're now only doing 3 of them. And then that yellow line is our linking move, which is transitioning between those holes. Again, no need to full retract, spin the part, and come back into it. So let me know, do you guys like some features like this? Is this looking cool? I love it, especially on 5-axis. Now, 4-axis, we've been able to fake it out with some circular patterns, but I think we're going to see a big pickup at the end of the day when we start to do heavy-duty jigs and fixtures for production. So let's go ahead and shift gears a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this neat little thing inside of Trim Toolpath. Is all too well, if you're like myself, we go in, we create our setup, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a 3D contour on my part, right? Let's say I want to stay inside of my boundary, and then from that, we're going to go ahead and just let this toolpath do what it naturally does. Again, let's just get that 1/2-inch ball inside of here. Where is it here? There's a 1/2-inch ball end mill. Now, if you've had this happen in the past, you're going to notice that we're dropping down below our part, right? So this is one of those things that before, based on Trim Toolpath, as you guys will see here, is if I get positioned in a way that I want to be able to trim this, is if I do a Trim Toolpath and then I set my boundary like so, and I want to keep everything outside of there, what you're going to notice is it actually trims inside of this part. So this is something that could, of course, ruin your part, cause some types of problems, things like that. So if I go back to that trim, again, it doesn't seem like they've done a lot when you get little check boxes in here like machine over holes or visible only in this case. But what you're going to notice is how fast that I can actually retain everything inside of this funnel. However, only trimming exactly what I see, right? Not actually going through the model completely, but actually utilizing those surfaces to slow itself down, to make sure that we're not trimming more than we need. So again, let me know, guys, does this seem like a super beneficial feature at the end of the day? But let's go back to our good old-fashioned what's new area, and let's take a look at what else we have inside there. So like I was saying, the machine overhauls is great. It's a checkbox. You don't have to patch over these things anymore. Again, making your life better, easier, and simpler to get good toolpaths. We are going to look at the whole template editor here in a moment. That trim enhancement, as you guys saw, the ability to trim out your toolpath based on visible only versus not. We've done the create selection set as well, making it easier to pull surfaces from one side to the other across different toolpaths. Going down a little bit further, that multi-axis drilling operation, again, a check in the box, guys. And all of a sudden, it's just like, boom, you're drilling all the holes and features that you can release or reach based on your angles of tilt. So, few other things you're going to see here is new controls now allow you to define a rotary axis. The holes to be machined will generally be perpendicular to this axis. Again, new 5-axis. This all falls back into that multi-axis drilling. So what they're telling you here is they've added a 4th and a 5th axis option that we saw in the multi-axis tab. Now, a few people need to know that there was additional information thrown into this as well. A little higher, this is where they're talking about the clearance on what's going on. Again, new clearance geometries and visualization for drilling. I would love to see this clearancing type stuff come into play when we start to utilize other multi-axis toolpaths. So again, we could go ahead and scroll down. As you guys are seeing, you can watch these videos at any time. We're going to go ahead and go back and look at some hole templates real quick. This was one that was brought up on Friday's free support. We had a good show out that people had a lot of questions about it, but I didn't get a chance to dive into it and really play around with it yet. So we're going to kick this off as normal. We're going to go ahead and go with our fixed size box 0 stock, just so that we're machining on this plate. But what I would like to do is to go through and see if we can generate a drilling cycle, which I'm not seeing the create template yet, right? We know that we can go in and utilize templates. So in order to build a template, we need to create some drilling cycles. So as you guys are going to see me do here, we're going to go ahead and simply go out, pick our holes. I think I'm actually going to need a bigger spot drill because I threw this part together kind of last minute here. 5/8 90-degree spot drill for the top of that guy. Again, as you can see, we've now spot drilled. We actually need bigger than that, it looks like. I now know we could also add in a bore here. Again, get our tool pulled up. We should be able to get away with, again, a 1/2-inch flat end mill. As you guys know, I love the 1/2-inch flat end mill. We're going to go back and do some drilling now. Pro tip here for you guys, if you didn't know, if you put your mouse on a surface and you want to know the diameter, it'll tell you in real time. That's a 426 drill. So we're going to go ahead and go down to our Fusion library and look for a 426 drill. You can see I could type in 0.42. Nothing's pulling up. We could go 0.4. What I'm looking for is that inch increment kind of tool. Let's just go ahead and drill it with a 413. You can see here, we pick our next hole face. We've done our drilling cycle. And not to bore you guys to death, if I threw the tap in there as well, we would see that. But what if I wanted to turn this into a template? As you guys are seeing is I want to store this as a hole template down here at the bottom. And now before, it would just kind of group them all together. And when you would apply your template, it would more or less go through and just ask you to pick the holes. There was no option to find identical holes automatically. But as you're seeing now, we have a completely different layout here, and you can get as crazy and as fancy as you want with this, right? So we could actually set tolerancing how close these holes are to one another. I'm just going to call this my simple 3-tool drill. We could go down to our signature. Again, as you guys are seeing, we have the ability to go through and define and specify different things inside of the software. As you're seeing, we have the cone itself, as it's being called. That is our spot drill. Our cylinder, which is our wall. And then again, an additional cylinder that is giving us our dimensions and our diameters. Lastly, we have our operations. As you can see, again, each one is aligned to each segment of that hole. Or I think they're using the signature. The signature is what they're calling it. Signature of the hole, making it so it auto-populates. Again, if we had a tap in here, guys, we would see 2 associated to that kind of cylinder at the bottom. So let's save that. Let's delete it and let's see what we can do with it. So this time we're going to go in and we're going to do a 3D tool. And now what I'm seeing is no whole face is selected, which let's go ahead and see why that is. So again, this is something where we might have to go back and watch the video on how we're supposed to quickly adapt this and utilize it as a template. Now, what I'm thinking is we might have to go back in and edit that template real quick. Let's go in there. Oh, let's go ahead and undo that. Create from template. We are going to select template. And then from here, you have the ability to go in and always edit your templates. So as you're seeing, based on the information, we have our generalization set up. We have priority capabilities. It actually display colors as well. And from there, I'm curious because we might actually have to utilize the whole recognition feature to see if we can pick that up automatically. So as you guys are seeing, based on whole feature recognition, it's only picking one of my holes as well. It's not picking all of them. Now let's go back and fix those toolpaths. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that back in. Again, we drove that off a surface originally, which is kind of strange to me that it didn't automatically pull through. Let's get our select same size diameter turned on. And in this case, we're not picking the same size diameter, and it makes sense because yours truly, like always, did something messed up, which was I failed to chamfer all of the holes. I only chamfered one of the holes, right? So now the fun. Let's go back to design. Is it going to be easier to fix this in design, or is it going to be, yep. So, all righty. So when we chamfer these guys, so we chamfered that one. I did a pattern of features. I failed to add in the chamfer to the pattern. Now you can see we have a lot of holes with chamfers on it. Back to manufacture. Let's regenerate and see if we can't find all those automatically. So again, I'm curious here because it's not as easy as I was hoping. However, I think what we're dealing with now is the idea that we might have to drive this based off of something that is specific, or you could have, again, your range, your minimum, your maximum. So this is where I think we're no longer going to utilize something that is driven by a surface. It's got to be set based on diameters, if that makes sense. Again, let's go ahead and throw a couple of colors in here real quick. Looks like you could pick a color from the screen. Super neat at the end of the day. And let's get back into our template. So again, I want to see real quick here if I create my template, no faces selected. So I'm pretty correct with my thinking is we need to base this off of a diameter range. So again, if we went off of a diameter range, we should automatically find features that way as well. I think I'm going to increase my range here just because of the hole size. And from that, let's see if we can't convert that into a template. Oh, as you're seeing, reference holes with incompatible geometry. So again, maybe I just need to go back and see what the video shows us when it comes to setting these up or how to do it. And I'm going to do that just by popping out, not my lovely multitasking, but we're going to go ahead and go back to the what's new. See a lot of you guys in the chat. You guys hear me all right? Everything looking good? Anybody have any questions on anything so far? Anything in particular they were hoping to see in this update that didn't see it, or anything that's going to improve your workflow, let me know. So again, when in doubt, go back to the video, right? So let's see how they do this. So it looks like we need to go to manage. There it is. We got our local library, and it looks like we're going to add a new hole template automatically. So there it is, man. It's as easy as reading the instructions, right? So let's go back to my part and see if we can't force this a second time through. I'm going to go ahead and delete that toolpath. Maybe. I think, there we go. And it's removed. So manage, template library. We're going to go into our local area so I can delete this at a later date. And let's add a brand new hole template from selection. So what it's now asking me for is the selection, which is pulling the entire part or the entire hole signature. And as you guys can see, we're going to leave this alone, but it looks like we're going to have to add in a couple operations here. This is actually pretty neat. So what I'm doing is I'm building a generic kind of situation. So let's go ahead and pull my tools back in. There's my 1/2-inch flat end mill. Geometry is going to be the cylinder. And let's see if that gives me anything. So there's that. Let's go ahead and add in a drill. Again, we're going to go ahead and go to our tool library. We have that 5/8 spot drill. This is going to be utilized for the cone portion of that hole. And then let's just start with 2 simple things and see what that gets us. So we have a hole template down here in my local library. And if I create from hole template, again, it's not circular face, no face selected, to be machined. I must be doing something way wrong. Something about selecting holes by color, right? So I've seen that. I've also seen where it will go through and auto apply those different holes. So let's go back in there one more time. It wouldn't be a normal video on our end if it wasn't for yours truly messing something up, right? So create operations. There we go. Let's go in and just edit this template. Cylinder is 625. Geometry. Let's go ahead and give it a range. Let's go. Actually, let's go ahead and say any size just for laughs, right? This is why in some cases you just got to go out there and read the instructions. Yep, still not doing it. So circular face selection, no face selection to machine. But that's got me wondering because I can manually select those faces. So I'm going to have to call this one a wash. We got everything else on their setup. Now I'm going to pivot real quick over to the lathe side of things for you guys. If you guys didn't notice that the tool library for the lathe, it's always been lacking, but at the end of the day, you actually now have the ability when you create your lathe tooling is they've changed the way that you define your setup and which direction your tool holders are sitting. So this is super neat that now visually you could actually see which way it should be orientated when it's in your machine. But you could also go through and when you're utilizing these tools, there's the ability to set up and utilize a clockwise or counterclockwise motion at the tool itself. So if you're somebody that's going to use a tool clockwise on the main, but that same tool is going to be used counterclockwise on the sub, it makes your life a lot easier. So again, I'm going to throw together a real quick part here just so that we can see that that's inside of Fusion. You guys know I'm the master of creating just things on the fly to get my point across. And let's jump into manufacture, turning, flip my Z-axis. And then from there, let's go in and give this a toolpath. So again, what you're seeing right here in real time is your spindle rotation. And if you guys didn't know, if you guys got a fancy lathe with a B-axis, we over here at jitcadcam would love to build a post for you where you can utilize tool orientation on a lathe tool. But let's go grab a tool, right? Let's go to the default library that hopefully never lets me down. Do some OD grooving. Again, as you guys can see, we could either go forward or reverse with that. Setting it up. And again, you can see we now have the warnings in place to make sure that you can't do anything wrong. And just like that, we're utilizing it as such on possibly your main. If we were to now jump over and do a brand new setup for a secondary spindle, and let's say we're on the secondary spindle going to do the same thing, which means we're going to just do another profile rough counterclockwise this time. And let's ignore that warning. Because again, if you guys don't know, the part would presumably still be spinning the same direction. Again, allowing that cut to either be counterclockwise or clockwise based on the direction of your insert as well. So a big one. Let me know. Guys, I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Hopefully we see you guys again on Friday for our free support Friday, where maybe I'll figure out a whole template. Who knows? Shouldn't be that hard. I'm probably making it hard. But as always, if you guys like the content, don't forget to like, subscribe, throw our content out there for other people. Hopefully your grandma's in her old folks home using a 3D printer, watching yours truly videos to get her CAD modeling done. So with that, you guys can also buy us a beer. We could be your Autodesk reseller. We offer support packages, training, and even post-processor development, depending on what you guys need. But as always, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You all know Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Can't wait to see you all on Friday.